Chapter 163 to 166. ZZZZT, boom. Dark lightning strikes the ground from a dark cloud that covers the sky from one end of the horizon to the next, completely obscuring the shattered sky of the mirror dimension. Standing in the air high above the ground is Bryce, whose cloak is fluttering around him from the winds that he purposefully caused to blow around him to make himself look cool. Although his control is shit, so it looks like a black rag caught in a tornado. Not that he's aware of how stupid he looks, since he's too absorbed in playing with those people below him. Specifically, he's watching them struggle as they defend against his lightning. They're not struggling though. Shuna and Trainee have created a magic barrier while Cheyenne, Soai, Shizu, and Mikoto are jumping around and dodging the lightning strikes. Pikachu dematerialized to better support Mikoto by enhancing her lightning. Because the dark lightning clouds are spread over such a large area, the rate of getting attacked by said lightning is pretty low. To be honest, Bryce really isn't trying to kill them. He's just showing off at this point. He believes doing so would convince them to change their allegiance and maybe surrender everything to him. You know, like Avalon itself. The concept that they are all serving Rimuru due to his previous actions inspiring loyalty in them never crossed his rather simple mind. Bryce, hey, why don't you guys give up already? Bryce lazily says as he lowers himself down from his high position in the sky. A bad move on his part. Cheyenne, now. Cracking the ground underneath herself, Cheyenne launches herself into the air straight towards Bryce, swinging her sword at him with everything she's got. Bryce, come on, this again. Didn't you learn from last time, GUH? Bang! Bryce attempted to grab the blade and catch it midair like before, but he instead got hit right in the stomach and thrown right into the ground, imprinting his figure into the dirt. Before, no one was using their magicules or their hard-hitting skills, the main strength of any respectable monster. This time, however, they decided there was no need to hold back and hide anymore and just go all out. They discussed all this privately with thought communication. Bryce, fucking hell. Bryce groans as he holds his left hip that is rapidly healing itself. However, he didn't bleed. Or more like, he can't bleed. Perks of having a spiritual body. But Bryce, as a man from modern Earth, should know how gravity works. What goes up must come down. Cheyenne, hey up. Bryce, oh sure dash. Boom. Cheyenne, from her position high in the air, fell down right on top of Bryce's figure. This wasn't planned, by the way. Cheyenne just decided to take the chance to throw in an extra hit on the way down. Bryce crossed his arms in front of himself, but it couldn't stop Cheyenne's heavy weapon enhanced with her skills and magicules. Bryce, why you foo dash? Bryce wanted to say something, but a magic circle appeared under him. 2 magic circles to be exact. One of them is crimson orange filled with runes, while the other is light green filled with natural energy. Those spells originated from Shuna and Trainee respectively. Shuna, ignition burst. Trainee, gale circle. Flames that melted the ground burst from Shuna's magic circle but were quickly contained by Trainee's spirit magic that created what could only be called a tornado. The combo magic spell ended up creating a pillar of highly concentrated flames that's comparable to the surface of the sun. Bryce, gah. Bryce's screams are music to their ears. Until a giant thick bolt of black lightning fell from the sky and split the pillar of fire in 2, destroying the spells. As the lingering plumes of flame disperse into the air, you can see Bryce's figure that looks like a burnt chicken nugget. I'm sure he still loves himself though. Unfortunately, he's rapidly regenerating. The good news is that his clothes somehow survived. Or at least, the parts covering his private areas did. Anime logic. Without the cloak concealing his identity since it was burnt away, you can finally see what he looks like. His body is normal. It's not fat, nor is it scrawny. He's got muscle, but it's not something noticeable. He looks to be around 20 years old. He's got brown hair and greenish eyes. His face surprisingly isn't that bad, probably a 7 out of 10. He probably has quite a few admirers. Of course, he's nowhere close to Rimuru, whose body is based on Shizue, who's a full 10/10, the most beautiful woman in the world according to Rimuru's standards. Yes, even above Mikoto. Only barely though. Bryce, cough that actually hurt. Okay, you guys are better than I expected. I guess I'll get a little more dash. Bang. Bryce attempted to stand back up but was immediately swatted back into the floor by Cheyenne and her big-ass sword. Immediately after, Cheyenne gets hit by a bolt of black lighting and gets pushed away. Lucking, not much damage was done except her weapon now has a black scorch mark where she blocked it. Bryce flips up onto his feet with an annoyed expression. He pushes off the ground flying into the air to get some space so he can act cool again. Thwip. But threads tie themselves around his ankles, pulling him down much to his surprise. Not only that, they cut deeply into his skin. Bryce, Aya. Get off. He channels electricity into the threads, disintegrating them, but by that time, more threads appear and wrap themselves around his wrists, also cutting them. Before Bryce could turn those threads to dust, more threads appear around his ankles again. Then his upper arms, thighs, shoulders, waist, neck, and so on. Bryce, Arjish. You little, come out. Unfortunately for Bryce, if Soai doesn't want to be found, he won't be found. Unless Ilya or Rimuru is involved, but still. Soai's job isn't to deal damage, however. It's just to hold him still. High in the skies above Bryce are two figures. One is a giant black cat with red patches on her ears and two tails that are on fire. The other is a tea-color-haired tsundere woman who is riding that giant black cat. I'm sure you already know who they are. Although she doesn't show it often, Shizu has reached a high A rank in the monster rankings. Her actual size has also grown a lot. Both of these are due to her limit breaker, unique skill she inherited from Mikoto. Dark clouds gather above them, but these clouds aren't flicking with black lightning, but with bluish-white lightning instead. The lightning converges into a single point which drops down from the clouds directly onto Mikoto. It hits her directly and travels through her body, concentrating on her arm which is pointing straight down that already has a familiar black and white meat bun coin loaded into it. Bryce, who is laying on his back looking into the sky, see this as his eyes widen. A gods of thunder. Now, he definitely doesn't have the proper instinct a warrior gains over time, as his strength was gained in but a single moment and he has never bothered to train. But even he can tell. That coin, that woman, is dangerous. It will kill me. And his guess is exactly correct. That coin can indeed kill him. Too bad for him, Mikoto fired it off. Thayim. Like a judgment from heaven, a pure white beam of energy infused with her magicules and Pikachu's lightning bound together with her harmony, unique skill that she gained upon entering this world descended from the skies and hit Bryce directly. The beam carried so much raw power that it destabilized the mirror dimension in the areas it passed through. Bryce, out of pure desperation, flared his aura full power which disintegrated the threads holding him. He can't escape at this point, so he does the next best thing. Holding out both hands in front of himself with a face of desperation, black lighting that carries everything he's got fires up into the skies and meets the beam of mass energy head-on. The lightning is rather weak due to Bryce rushing to create it. The moment it hits Mikoto's railgun, it immediately gets pushed back, barely slowing it down. And then something that surprised everyone happened. Mikoto's beam of concentrated pure white lightning began to turn black. Currently, Mikoto is on the ground. Not standing up, but laying down on it. To be exact, as she is right now, she can't stand up. Patches of black scorch marks and burnt fringes can be found all over her Tokuwadai middle school uniform. Fortunately, it's still largely intact. Unfortunately, however, her body has taken quite a bit of damage as well. Lightning scars can be found spread over skin throughout her whole body, sometimes covered with black scorch marks. Furthermore, blood can be seen seeping slowly out of her eyes, ears, mouth, and nose. Her breathing is ragged as her body tries to recover. Her throat feels like she hasn't had a drink in months. Her ears are ringing and the only thing she can hear is her own strained breaths and heartbeat. Her eyes are half open, staring into the sky filled with dark clouds, wondering whether she should stay awake and endure the pain racking her body or just listen to her body and fall into unconsciousness. Mikoto, it's a little ironic. Mikoto thinks to herself. She, a lightning user, was bested at her own speciality. She would chuckle to herself if such an action didn't spark a flash of pain throughout her body. But it can't be helped. She knows that. Bryce and his lightning, it's different. She used her strongest attack, a railgun infused with her own Electromaster Esper powers infused with the majority of her magicules and full support from Pikachu using a meat bun coin, specially created for her railguns. By all means, it should have killed him. There's no doubt about it. Especially with everyone distracting him until the last moment, although those distractions were enough to critically injure Bryce if not for his regeneration. Mikoto, maybe I should ask Rimuru to give me a regeneration skill too. TCH, I'm still depending on him. Her fingers twitch as she tries to regain control over her body. After taking that attack, she could barely feel anything except the pain throughout her body and her throbbing headache. Mikoto, I fired off my railgun, and then, it started turning black. Mikoto's railgun attack started to change, or corrupt, for lack of a better word. Bryce's rather rushed attack hit Mikoto's attack head-on in an attempt to slow it down, but the color of his black lightning started seeping in. Eventually, Mikoto lost control over her railgun and, somehow, it was turned against herself. Mikoto, maybe he baited us into that, not likely. He also seemed surprised. Indeed, Bryce didn't know he could do something like that. Or rather, he didn't know Veldora could do something like that. The railgun beam was reflected and flew back to Mikoto, but luckily, Shizu was able to jump out of the way. That luck ended there, however, as the now black beam exploded, showering the area with a hail of electricity. Shizu, in a desperate attempt to save Mikoto, blocked most of it with her body. Mikoto, Shizu. Mikoto's half-closed eyes open widely as she painfully turns her head, trying to find a certain Hellcat. But what she sees causes her to take a moment. It seems she underestimated the size of that explosion. The whole area looked like it went through a war, with cracked and scorched dirt and the bodies of her dear friends in a not much better state than herself. Shizu is lying on the ground no far from herself, seemingly unconscious and in her smaller form. Luckily, her fur insulated some of the damage. If there's any good news, it's that every single one of them can recover if nothing worse happens. Yes, if nothing worse happens. Insert the bastard that put them all in this condition in the first place. Bryce, haha. Of course, my storm crest is the best. Bryce, the dickweed, is laughing his ass off. He casually strolls up to Mikoto, who's still on the ground. If looks could kill, Bryce would not only drop dead, but he would go out in a fireworks explosion that even Megumin only wishes she could make. Mikoto's stare is very potent. Bryce, haha. You guys are such idiots. Why would you a lightning attack against me? Ahaha. Even though Bryce himself didn't know the extent of his abilities. His storm crest gives him authority over storms, which unfortunately also extends to lightning and electricity. At least, that's the theory that's running through Mikoto's mind. Bryce, I am the best. And Bryce can't help but shove that fact into everyone's faces. Oh well, at least he's stalling himself, giving the chance for everyone to recover. Mikoto's hand clenches into a fist as she works on regaining more control over her paralyzed body. A mysterious force flowing through her body seems to speed up her healing. Bryce, hey, Mikoto. I'm gonna ask you again. Become my girlfriend. I'm even a lightning user, like you. But I'm better though. It's obvious you should love me then. Mikoto wonders what Bryce had to go through in life to get a brain that fuck to come up with that conclusion. Bryce, I mean, you don't have to, but... Bryce throws his hand out. A source of black lightning travels up his arm and out of his palm, hitting the ground near Shizu's unconscious body. Bryce, I don't need the guys or that fucking cat. I might leave the other girls alone though, maybe. Well anyway, they live if you come with me. If you don't. Spark. Electricity sparks from his fingertips. Bryce. You get me? Mikoto's glare calms down at his threat. She would have little to no problems with going down fighting, especially against a scrub like this guy. Heck, she's scared of death, she's just much more scared of spending time with him. But dragging the others down with her? No. That's not something she can decide. And even if they agree, she won't just do something that could kill them. They're her friends, her family in this foreign world. Mikoto grits her teeth. She decided. She won't risk their lives. If she has to give herself up in the process, so be it. Mikoto, I dash. Benimaru, stop. A calm but stubborn voice echoes out. Bryce, goddammit, not again. From the trees that are miraculously untouched by the lightning bombardment, a familiar red-haired Kijin walked, or rather stumbled, out. Hakuru is also with him, seemingly unconscious with his arms slung over Benimaru's shoulder as support. Benimaru, what you were about to do would make Rimuru-sama sad. That's why I won't hesitate to kill you if you accept his offer. After that, I will kill him, and then kill myself should Rimuru-sama wish it. Benimaru looks at Mikoto with cold eyes. Mikoto, then what do I do? Mikoto's raspy voice reaches Benimaru's ears. Benimaru, I don't know. But I always think about what Rimuru-sama would do in such a situation. Mikoto looks around. Shuna, Cheyenne, Trainee, Soai are now conscious and are pushing against the ground, struggling to get back up despite their aching and wounded bodies. Seeing such a sight, she can't really understand why they would risk their lives in such a way. They can just let her go and give up, that way everyone walks away alive. But then she remembers what Benimaru said. Rimuru-sama would be sad. Imagining Rimuru looking at her with a disappointed expression. Mikoto. I don't want that. Mikoto's parched voice whispers out. Bryce, huh? Sorry, I couldn't hear you. What? Do you accept to be my wife? Bryce wasn't joking, he actually couldn't hear her since she was that quiet. But Mikoto is in her own world right now. Mikoto, right. What would Rimuru do in such a situation? She thinks for barely a few seconds before she smiles. The healing energy mysteriously flowing through her body speeds up as she pushes against the ground. Slowly, while nearly falling down again several times and ignoring her screaming body, she stands up. She looks up at Bryce dead in the eyes. Bryce thought that even with those lightning scars that he thought were unsightly, even with blood leaking from her mouth, eyes, ears, and nose, even with that battered and broken look. With that smile of hers, Mikoto might as well be the most beautiful woman in the world. Mikoto, Kotowaru, I refuse. Bryce. Okay. With a face devoid of emotions, Bryce speaks. And then all sound disappeared. Bryce, then you all have no use for me. Barely 10 seconds have passed since Mikoto's rejection. Regardless of how lacking Bryce has control of his powers, he still has the full strength of Veldora, the true dragon of storms. It's kinda ironic since Veldora always went wild so he himself had little control. But while Veldora had experience, Bryce does not. So Bryce is weaker than Veldora. Even so, Veldora is a being even demon lords and heroes would find hard to beat and would prefer to avoid. And now the guy wielding his powers is running around beating the shit out of everyone. In the middle of the clearing in the forest within the mirror dimension, you can see a dark figure. It's Bryce, but right now he looks drastically different. A humanoid figure made entirely out of black lightning, that's what he looks like right now. His form is constantly shifting as tendrils of lightning and electricity extend from his body and dissipate into the air it passes through becoming erratic and unstable. You can feel the destruction imbued into that lightning. The only human feature left remaining about him are his eyes, and even so, they are now pure white. Everything else, his mouth, nose, even his fingers, are obscured in lightning, or perhaps they're not even there anymore in the first place. He stands there for barely half a second before disappearing into sparks of lightning. Immediately after, he reappears behind Soai with his hands drawn back, ready to attack. With practiced movements, Soai ducks as Bryce's hand sails over his head. Immediately after, Benimaru appears next to him and slashes his katana at Bryce. Shing! As expected, it was a miss. The blade cut nothing but air as Bryce disappeared into sparks again, reappearing back in the center. Surrounding him from all directions are Shuna, Cheyenne, Benimaru, Soai, Trainee, Hakuru, Mikoto, and Shizu. This has been repeating itself. Bryce attempts to take someone out, but they avoid it as someone immediately rushes to cover for them, to which he retreats. Such high-speed movements are only possible to him who is currently an incarnation of Black Lightning. He calls it his Black Thunder Lightning Dragon Demon God mode of heaven and hell and earth and space and dimensions and galaxies and universe. A beautiful name, I know. It's a rather simple technique. He just became one with his lightning. It's only possible for him who has a spiritual body and the storm crest. This allows him to move at the speed of lightning and become invulnerable to physical damage. Despite that, Rimuru's subordinates are pseudo-demon lords. Dodging lightning is hard, but not impossible. And after coating their weapons with magicules or using magic itself, they can damage Bryce, if he let them. And so this game of cat and mouse continues. In such a high-tension situation, these 10 seconds have felt like 10 minutes, Bryce making a move every half a second with everyone else barely keeping up. Good news, Pikachu made a big brain move and gave everyone some full potions. It sneaked in from outside the mirror dimension while Bryce was distracted with Mikoto's rejection. Everyone is fully recovered disregarding their exhausted mental state. Bad news, Bryce went re-yi and shut Pikachu out. His storm crest can even affect lightning spirits, fuck. More bad news, Bryce grew a brain cell. He disappeared with that familiar residue lightning left behind and reappeared behind Shuna. However, he didn't attack. Cheyenne leapt forward on instinct to defend Shuna, swinging her giant sword at Bryce. With her tired mental state, she couldn't comprehend why Bryce didn't attack quickly enough. And that costed her. Bryce, you fell for it. Bryce's excited staticky voice was the first to speak in those 10 seconds. His white eyes turned into crescents at the approaching Cheyenne as he drew his hand back and thrust it forward directly at her chest. In slow motion as dread set into everyone's mind, his hand slowly entered her chest up to his wrist. Because of his spiritualized state, Cheyenne's skin wasn't pierced and no blood was spilt. But if it did, that might have been a better fate. VVVVVVVOM. A small shockwave erupted. Bryce set off a small lightning bomb in Cheyenne's heart. Bryce, haha. He retracts his hand and jumps back, his crescent eyes looking at Cheyenne as if marveling at his work. Thuck. Cheyenne's weapon dropped to the floor beside her, its blade half-sheathing itself into the dirt below. Cheyenne's hand hovers over her broken heart as blood leaks out of the side of her lips. Slowly closing her eyes, her face morphs into not one of pain or anger, but one of calmness with a slight trait of sadness. Cheyenne, stopping here, huh? Those words caused more blood to leak from Cheyenne's mouth, but she didn't pay it any mind. Instead, she opens her eyes that are now filled with determination, defiance, and all the wrath she held for this man up to this point. Grasping the hilt of her weapon, she strains her arm muscles and throws it, all in one smooth motion. Bryce, yeah. Shing. Bryce, not expecting this at all, finds the blade now embedded into his chest. Now, although his spiritualized state makes it so he can't take any damage from physical attacks, the trace amount of magicules Cheyenne sneaked into her weapon as it left her hand made it so that Bryce could feel it. And just so you know, getting stabbed doesn't feel nice. Bryce, JAH. The magicules in the blade dissipates and so the weapon just phases through him, falling onto the floor. Cheyenne grins, her outstretched hand from throwing her weapon clenches, leaving but one finger showing. The middle finger. Cheyenne, fuck you. And with that, she collapsed onto the floor, her breathing gradually stopping, all with a satisfied smile on her face. Bryce, fucking bitch. Gah. That hurt. But no one listened to him. They all stare at their fallen purple-haired companion. No one said a word. Shuna begins to leak tears. Cheyenne died while trying to protect her from Bryce, so of course, she took it hard. And so did Mikoto. She has experience with losing people she loves with the level 6 shift project back in her old world. Specifically, the sisters. She's seen records of previous experiments where some of the sisters died and even had one die in front of her before shutting the project down. But that doesn't make things any less painful. And right now, Mikoto is feeling a whole lot of pain. Not just pain, but anger, grief, and a whole slew of other emotions all mixed together. Mikoto. I knew it. I can't do anything. I can't save Cheyenne, I can't save myself, how can I be expected to stand beside him? A vague image of Rimuru appears in her mind. Mikoto, this is just. Tears leak from her eyes, mixing with the blood that was already there. Mikoto, these emotions, they hurt. At this moment, it felt like something snapped. Not in a bad way like she's going crazy, no. But it felt like something was removed. A limit, a lid, something like that. She doesn't know, but her limit breaker skill is working on overdrive from the mess of emotions within her. And because of this, she broke her limits once again. But this limit is different. It's a limit ingrained into all espers of her world. It's the level limit. All espers have a set level they can reach before reaching an insurmountable wall, unable to advance past that. Mikoto's limit was level 5. But this limit was just removed. Mikoto, Shiun. With a scream that has her heart and soul into it, with a burst of magicules that create a bluish-white aura around her that reaches the darkened clouds, with desperation for power that is beyond anything she has ever felt before. Mikoto Misaka began to advance to level 6. Author POV. Level 6. It's something many people in Mikoto's homeworld would kill to accomplish, and due to the intervention of a certain slime, a girl who no one thought would be able to reach that level has taken their first step into that enigmatic level 6. But it's in another world, so, RIP. To put it in simple terms, if an esper becomes level 6, they basically become a god, a higher being. Their forms change and they become capable of calculations that use non-human logic, making it so they can possibly bend reality. I mean, I'm not an expert on Toru, so I'm not sure, but yeah. But still, such a process is eerily familiar, don't you think? Kind of like how Rimuru became a higher being upon entering this world under the influence of Heaven's Feel. Now, I don't know what this process would have been like back in the Toru world, but this is the Tensura world right now, so this is technically an evolution. Once you reach the highest ranks on the evolutionary ladder, for example, True Demon Lord or Saint, you will receive a protection. Rimuru himself received the crest of space since he, somehow, had a great affinity with space. Gee, I wonder who gave him that. And now, Mikoto is getting her own protection. The reason Bryce can beat the shit out of everyone is because of his vast magicules and his storm crest, his protection. In a way, it protects him and grants him authority over anything related to storms, so he is Mikoto's direct counter. Mikoto herself is also the strongest among those under Rimuru. She received plenty of help from him and continued to train using the methods he gave her every day for months. This, along with her own, Limit Breaker, unique skill that boosted her growth even more, made it so she can floor Accelerator in under a minute. In fact, if not for Bryce's Storm Crest, Mikoto could probably defeat him by herself. Granted, there's only a 50/50th chance and she could die, but it's possible. Please note that Mikoto hasn't reached the final stages of her evolution just yet, and she's merely an enlightened. And if Mikoto were to get a protection of her own, that uneven playing field due to the Storm Crest will get evened out. With everyone else's help, defeating Bryce is only a matter of time. If only there wasn't a teeny tiny problem. Individual Mikoto Misaka is undergoing evolution. Error. Requirements not met. Due to unique skill, Limit Breaker, the evolution is unable to be halted. Processing. Error. Requirements not met. Unique skill, Limit Breaker, is forcing the evolution process. Error. Requirements not met. Unique skill, Limit Breaker, is forcing the evolution process. Error. Requirements not met. Unique skill, Limit Breaker. Error. Requirements not met. Limit Breaker. Error. Requirements not met. Error. Requirements not met. Error. 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 The voice of the world makes a reappearance. But aside from that, yes, Mikoto is in a bit of a pickle. Limit Breaker removed her level cap and is forcing the evolution into level 6 due to Mikoto's own desire for power to beat Bryce's overinflated ego into the ground and then teabag him afterwards. Mikoto wants to do more than that, but I will keep those details to myself for your sake. The problem here is that Mikoto doesn't meet the requirements. Specifically, she doesn't have the mental capacity to facilitate the calculations of God, a core trait of a level 6 Esper and the reason why level SXS are so strong. Fortunately, Rimuru's shitty luck decides to step in just this once to save his waifu. Just kidding, he ran out of luck the moment he summoned Mikoto. This is just plot armor at work. Raphael, Skill Orb. It's the crystallization of Rimuru's old ultimate skill, Raphael, Lord of Wisdom, that he broke to facilitate the creation of Manus, Iliasville, our resident lowly Amuto. Specifically, it has everything except its ego. And now Mikoto's other unique skill makes an appearance. Requirements not met. Unique skill, Limit Breaker, is forcing the evolution process. Unique skill, Harmony, is forcing the evolution process. A golden orb suddenly appears in front of Mikoto's chest. It's the Raphael skill orb that Rimuru gave her just before she returned to Avalon. Where it came from, no one knows, nor is it important. What is important is what's happening next. Unique skill, Harmony, is assimilating R, Fei, L, RDO. Wis, Oum, with individual Mikoto Misaka. Error. R, Fei, L, RDO. Wis, Oum, is in an incomplete state. Unique skill, Harmony, is assimilating R, Fei, L, RDO. Wis, OM. Error. You get the drill. Such notifications are repeating over and over again inside Mikoto's head, but she barely registers them. But then something changes. Unique skill, Harmony, is assimilating R, Fei, L, RDO. Wis, Oum, with individual Mikoto Misaka under the effects of unique skill, Limit Breaker. Success. Replacing lost elements with individual Mikoto Misaka's psyche. And so begins a near impossible occurrence. A skill is fusing with someone beyond the level of a skill and a user. In this case, the user is becoming the skill and vice versa. The golden orb hovering in front of Mikoto slowly sinks into her chest and dissipates into energy, spreading throughout her body but mostly concentrating on her mind. Individual, Mikoto Misaka, is undergoing evolution. Unique skill, Limit Breaker, is forcing the evolution process. Unique skill, Harmony, is forcing the evolution process. Requirements met, beginning the evolution. Mikoto's overflowing aura of bluish-white magicules that pierces the dark clouds begins to grow smaller. Its intensity, however, doesn't lessen a single bit and only increases. Stronger. Stronger. Even stronger. Mikoto is now easily growing into one of the most powerful people in the world on the level of Bryce. No, shooting past Bryce and on the level of Milim herself. Her aura solidifies and turns into something similar to pure lightning, yet at the same time, not. It's something more ethereal, more beautiful. It covers her more sensitive parts and her arms and legs as her tattered Tokuwada uniform randomly decides to give up and disintegrate. Above her head, something similar to a majestic crown of energy appears. With the excess energy, wings appear, although it's hard to call it that. But they don't subtract from her charm at all. Unfortunately, things just had to go wrong at this moment. Protection, Bairi crest has been obtained. And with that, Bryce lost that vague sense of superiority he had over Mikoto. Instead, when he looks at her, he doesn't see someone he loves, someone beneath him, but rather an equal. And he hates that. For once, he felt threatened. Sure, before, he could have died a few times in the last few minutes, but he never felt threatened. It's an instinctual feeling all true dragons have since they know they will just resurrect somewhere else. Granted, it won't be him, but you take what you can get. But now, he no longer feels that sense of security. He feels threatened. He will die if he faces her, in the truest sense of the word. He doesn't know this, but it's because his storm crest was stolen, but Mikoto's Bairi crest was earned through luck, dedication, and months of hard work. Mostly luck, but it was her luck. Not someone else's. Because of this, her crest is superior, and since storms and electromagnetism are linked to each other, just like how Bryce sealed Pikachu out, Mikoto can seal Bryce's true dragon rebirth. Don't question it, it makes sense in my head. Just chalk it up to bullshit anime logic. And so, Bryce made a decision that sealed his fate, not that he knows that. He attacked Mikoto in the middle of her evolution, her weakest moment. Flashing forward towards Mikoto, his dark lightning hand embedded itself into her chest, and just like Cheyenne, he ruptured her heart. Bryce, deprive. With a twisted smile no one can see, he activated his unique skill. He knows he won't be able to take everything in such a short time, but if he gets a little rough, he can take a little something for his troubles. Rimuru teleported into the mirror dimension at this very moment. Rimuru, NOO. He quickly exercises his control over space and teleports Mikoto into her arms, carrying her in a princess carry. Rimuru, come on, stay with me, you're gonna be okay, come on. Mikoto's ruptured heart gradually healed itself after taking in magicules from Rimuru, but the damage has already been done. Furthermore, her soul was damaged due to Bryce's unique skill. It's as if he tore a piece off. Unable to stay conscious anymore, Mikoto looks up at Rimuru's face one last time, his panicked words only sounding like muffled echoes in her ears. Mikoto, ah. I still have to bake cookies. Snap. That was the sound of Mikoto's bracelet breaking. It's the bracelet Rimuru gave her on the day she was first summoned that has a little Gakota accessory on it. And although no one heard it, any trace of Rimuru's composure snapped at that moment as Mikoto's consciousness drifted into nothingness. And so, Bryce is hereby officially fucked. Name, Rimuru. Race, Origin Slime. Protection, Crest of Space. Title, Highest Tier Spirit, Leader of the Monsters, Oniai-chan, King of Avalon, Master of Head Pats, Procrastinator King, The Nutcracker, Socially Awkward Cringe Slightly Chuyuni Slime, Dragon Slayer, Sensei. Manus, Iliasville. Ultimate Skills, Belzebuth, Lord of Gluttony, Ahura Mazda, Lord of Creation, Scathack, Lord of Runes. Unique Skills, Spatial Ruler. Intrinsic Skills, Infinite Regeneration, Universal Shape-Shift, Universal Sense, Enhanced Replication, Universal Thread. Extra Skills, Lord's Ambition, Thought Communication, Control Natural Elements, Control Magic, Control Gravity. Resistances, Cancel Pain, Resist Melee Attack, Cancel Natural Elements, Cancel Ailments, Cancel Spiritual Attack, Resist Holy/Demonic Attack, Natural Attack Resistance. Equipment, Yamato, limiter ring. If you want to support me, check out my Patreon at https://www.patreon.com/kaishin. I tend to polls that decide important plot stuff in my Patreon. Many thanks to my awesome patrons. Nicholas Berenger, Ben Phillips, Yamatancho, Taco TSK, Yuki. If you enjoyed the content, don't forget to give it a like and subscribe to the channel. I'll be here until next time.